What is bulimia? Part 3. Where did the obsessive bulimia thoughts come from? Unsolicited obsessive thoughts are an essential part of any anxiety disorder, and bulimia is no different. We've already discussed how thoughts create emotional states and the knock-on effect with respect to bulimia. But where do the thoughts come from? In order to answer this question, we first need to consider an aspect of how our thoughts and emotions work together in order to make sense of our experience. Let's ask a simple question. How do you know if something is important? We'll examine a couple of basic examples in order to draw a real-life conclusion. Example 1. You notice a charity collection bag in your hallway. You've looked at it many times and thought it may be a good idea to clear out some of your old clothes and to give them to the charity shop. You ponder for a moment and decide now is not a good time, and then sit down to watch TV. Example 2. You receive a call late at night and are informed that your best friend has been involved in a serious car accident. They're alive but badly injured. Unfortunately, there's no visiting at the hospital and there's nothing you can do. Which of these examples would elicit a strong emotional response? Obviously, the second example would elicit a strong emotional response. Would you say that made it important? This is actually how we assess what is and isn't important in life. The more intense the response, the higher the importance. However, this isn't just applicable to events. It is just as true for thoughts. The brain does not discriminate between events and thoughts when it comes to firing off emotional states. Hence, you can remember things from the past or speculate about things in the future, such as being fat, and the brain fires off the emotion as though it's actually happening in the present. If you suffer with bulimia, you'll be really good at this already. So now we understand how we calibrate an event or thought as being important through the intensity of the emotion it elicits. The next thing to understand is that the brain has to deal with loads of information and decide what to keep and what to discard. The truth is that the brain uses a kind of importance scale to rate a thought, memory or event in order to decide what to do with it. If the thought, memory or event elicits no emotional response, it's unimportant and gets deleted. If it elicits a low to medium emotional response, the brain files it away in the depths of your mind, just in case. However, if the thought, memory or event elicits a strong or intense emotional response, the brain files it right at the top of the important pile. Now, the brain is basically a thought generator. That's its job. If you doubt this, simply close your eyes, sit quietly for 1 minute and have no thoughts. You know as well as we do that thoughts will pop into your head even when you don't want it to happen. First, that demonstrates the brain is in fact a thought generator, as we said. And second, that you don't actually run the thought generating show. If you did run the show and called the shots, your mind would have been quiet when you asked it to. So, the brain automatically pops thoughts into your awareness. However, these thoughts are not random. The brain selects thoughts to bring to your attention from the top of its important pile. Thus, it will follow that the thoughts generated are the ones relating to other thoughts, memories and events, which previously elicited strong emotional responses. Are you beginning to recognise what you do yet? However, when such a thought, for example thinking about binging, pops into your head, you dwell on it and play out scenarios in your mind's eye. The playing out of scenarios or reliving of experiences generates intense emotional states. The brain then associates the intense emotional states with the thought and puts it back on top of the pile, ready for bringing up later. This is how the obsessive thought process self-perpetuates. Each thought runs its own cycle. If you have 100 intense thoughts with respect to different things, they each run their own cycles over and over. Here's a summary of how obsessive thoughts, and hence emotions, cycle and self-perpetuate. 1. An unsolicited thought pops into your mind. 2. You focus your attention on the thought and play out different scenarios. 3. When a scenario goes wrong, you feel anxious, guilty, or worthless, etc. 4. The brain associates the intense feeling with the thought. 5. The brain labels the thought important because it elicited a strong emotional feeling. 6. The brain files the thought as important, please recycle, at the top of the pile. 7. When your attention drifts, the thought gets recycled back into your awareness. Go to 1. As you can see, the obsessive thought process is self-feeding and self-renewing. This applies not only to keeping your bulimia running, but also to your underlying self-perception beliefs. The more you dwell, the more it cycles. The more it cycles, the worse you feel. The worse you feel, the more real it becomes. Essentially, what you're trying to do, unsuccessfully with bulimia, is to break this cycle. However, in reality, food and weight have absolutely no bearing on this process whatsoever. This is the reality of why eating disorders never deliver on their promise to make you feel better. We hope the psychological side of bulimia is starting to make more sense to you now. We work every day with people just like you, with the same problems, perceptions, guilt and shame. You can overcome this with our help. We've been doing this successfully for over 15 years. And we know our stuff. Let's now have a look at how the compulsive eating cycle works. Although this is symptomatic of the psychological thought process stuff we've already discussed, for the sake of completion, we'll go over it with you in the next video. If you found this video helpful and you like the idea of us sharing our research and development with the people who need it, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up.